So as you guys are probably aware, I grew up watching the prequel trilogy, and just like many of you I'm sure, that was my generation of Star Wars, and as such, whenever we see certain planets or characters, there's a lot of nostalgia attached to them, and that could not be more true than Coruscant. The few times we have seen it in the Disney Star Wars era, it always pulls on those heartstrings. We saw it briefly in the Kenobi show, we saw it in Grogu's flashback in the Book of Boba Fett, briefly in Rogue One, and sprinkled here and there in other projects too. But we really haven't had a proper look at it since Revenge of the Sith, and that was 17 years ago, can you believe it? But today we've got some great news, my dear Mandalorians. Tony Gilroy has promised we are going to get a better look at the planet in the Andor show. We're all looking forward to Mon Mothma, the Imperial Senate, and all of that. We already knew Coruscant was going to play a big role in this show, but we didn't know to what extent. But now he says tongue-in-cheek, we're going to get a much more intricate look at it. He jokingly says, what does the bodega look like on Coruscant? And aside from this, I've seen a few social media influencers who've already seen episode 4 say that the Coruscant content coming up is going to be very impressive. So who knows, maybe we will see that bodega after all, or perhaps a closer look at the sky traffic, or maybe a visit to Cocoa Town. Let's wait and see. But so far in Andor episodes 1 to 3, we've only gotten a glimpse at what's to come. We started to get a bit about Andor's backstory, as well as a look at his values, and ultimately, at the end of episode 3, the start of his journey with Luthen, the seeds of a story that's going to develop into Cassian eventually joining the rebel cause. But we've not seen Coruscant yet, and the whole subplot with Mon Mothma, and of course, the Imperial Senate, but patience, that is coming really soon, maybe as soon as episode 4, and that's going to mark the next 3 episode story arc, this time involving the Galactic capital itself. In a brand new interview with Rolling Stone, Tony teases the next batch of episodes, but he seems to have softened a little bit when it comes to his comments about fan service. Over the last few weeks and months, he's been all about no fan service whatsoever, but in this interview, I can't really describe it, but it does feel like his tone has changed, and that's primarily because he admits there are some galactic scale events that are going to take place in the season, some which are going to overlap with stories and even characters we already know. It almost sounds like there were things the story group at Lucasfilm told him he's got to incorporate into the show because they're just that important to the canon. The one quote that really stands out, I have 5 years to worry about, and those 5 years are really potent historically. They're certainly potent dramatically, and here's the big bit, there's some really big canonical moments that have to be incorporated. Now one of these is very clearly going to be the disbanding of the Galactic Senate and Mon Mothma stepping down and starting the Rebel Alliance. But there could be more to this. I wonder what else is going to be explored in 5BBY. As a year in Star Wars history, 5BBY is pretty significant, but there are also a lot of gaps too. There was an attack on an airfield on Lothal. In the same year, Geonosis was abandoned by Saw Gerrera on Tamsi Prime. There was the Battle of Mantuine and the creation of the Rebel Files, among other things. But there is also the monumental shift in how the galaxy perceives the Empire at this point. Tony Gilroy says that Andor is going to explore the moment when regular people decided enough is enough and they stood up to the Imperial regime. In the past, Tony Gilroy spoke about how the rebellion is not one thing. There are so many strands and pockets of it across the galaxy, and we're going to start to see some of those in this show. Now, speaking further about what to expect, Tony says the following: it's a show where war is coming. What happens in the 5 years before war comes? One side is highly organised, the Empire is extremely organised, and it's a textbook play of consolidation of power. I knew I needed someone very much like the character that Stellan Skarsgård plays, and he's talking about Luthen. You know, who are the people out there that are building the networks, who are anticipating what's happening? Who are the people that are so outraged and so afraid of what's going on and are either vengeful or mindful? There must be some people that are trying to connect that together. Someone like Stellan's character who's been tilling that field for a long time and was a combination talent scout, organizer, and behind the scenes puppeteer. And I did say this on my full episode breakdown, I don't really trust Luthen right now. Obviously as a character he's great, Stellan plays him wonderfully, but there is still more to him. He's just a bit crafty and we don't know his entire motivation. And then he teases something huge for episode 4. He says the first 3 episodes are a tidy little tight story there. It's not very expansive in a way, but you can see how we're going to begin to go huge in 4, and we're going to just get bigger and bigger and bigger. We're not going to want to miss this one, guys. The story is going to pick up in a massive way. Now he also commented on everyone's favourite new droid, B2EMO. I don't know about you guys, but I was really surprised when he started talking. I really didn't expect that. I genuinely thought he was going to spend the entire series beeping around. But in the words of Granddaddy Pelps, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. So let's dive into this. Speaking about B2EMO, Tony Gilroy adds, I wanted that. It wasn't a mandate from anybody or anything like that. We wanted a salvage droid. But I also thought, you know, a droid's like an old dog. Let's have a dog. Let's have that emotional component and see how it goes. And again, that's something you tiptoe forward onto. You really want it to be emotional. And I really think that came across. What's very clear from fan reception is that B is an absolute hit. I'm sure he's going to save the day a few times before the season is out. But I love the way Tony Gilroy is so passionate about his show. He's really hyping it, but also telling fans along the way to hold on and give it a chance. Big things are coming. And I think it might be because while reviews were generally very positive for Andor episodes 1 to 3, there were a few folks saying it was a bit slow. But that is very deliberate and a luxury they can afford with 12 episodes. And Tony is saying that's just the way the structure is, but from episode 4 and beyond, it's basically a whole new show, an explosion of adventure. And remember guys, he did say there are about 30 characters with a leading presence in this series, so we really haven't seen anything yet. I've rewatched Andor episodes 1 to 3 about 5 times now. I really love the show. I love that it's a spy thriller in and of itself. It's such a nicely contained world, while also building upon what we know and love about Star Wars as a universe. I really can't wait for episode 4. And so finally guys, we finished with something a bit touching. The Queen's final knighting was the great composer John Williams. He is very much the emotion and soul of so many childhoods. His music is the heartbeat of Star Wars, and he was honoured by the Queen as one of her very final knights before she passed away. This comes from Deadline, and they basically celebrate John Williams and the influence he's had on pop culture. They cite Jaws, Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, E.T., Star Wars, and so many other iconic scores that make him the legend he is, even described as the sound of cinema by Bob Iger. I'm just so happy and grateful he decided to come back to Star Wars after The Rise of Skywalker to do the Kenobi theme. It's what he calls his final contribution to the franchise. So John Williams, or should I say Sir John Williams, you're an absolute gem. But with that said, my dear friends, we now look to Andor episode 4. This week just flew by. It's now less than 2 days away. I can't wait for it. As always, I will be doing a breakdown. It's probably going to be a much more in-depth breakdown than last week because we did have 3 episodes, so I did have to skim over a lot of content. But this time, my dear friends, we're really gonna digest every single detail. So excited. Let me know how you're feeling about it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video guys, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. It really helps out with the channel. Subscribe if you're new, and a huge welcome if you are. But until the next one, my dear friends, may the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg. Have a good one.